Hi, it's the Chappiness guy. Welcome to today's episode of Vestibular Talks. Today's episode, I'm not going to do an introduction like I usually do. I'm going to let our special guest introduce herself by the following video. So remember to please like, share, and subscribe. Find your Chappiness, guys.
In 2015, I woke up to the sensation of being at sea. When I took my first step, solid ground turned to liquid. This rare syndrome is called mal de débarquement, a neurological disorder that manifests as a constant perception of rocking, bobbing, or swaying. I feel like I live on an old dock overtaken by the sea. Laying down or closing my eyes doesn't make it stop. But when riding in a car, I am my old self again. Passive motion makes me forget that I have an incurable condition. In the first 2 years, I fought it every moment of every day by chasing cures. As months turned to years, a sense of failure filled my life. Loss of identity, loss of career, loss of control. I was at sea with no rudder. I needed to find other people facing chronic conditions, people grappling honestly and creatively with the limitations of their bodies, and I needed to know how they were doing it. And I found them everywhere, people saying yes to the messy, uncomfortable journey of being alive. With no fix in sight, these people are far from irreparably broken. I call us the Unfixed.
This concept of being unfixed, it is hard to embrace at first because you feel like, but I want to be fixed. But then you get to that point where this is my life. I'm unfixed. I'm going to be unfixed. And how you deal with that and how you accept that is crucial.
I was ready to live poor and happy. I didn't expect to live poor and happy with cancer.
In the media, it's easy to find success stories. Everyone loves a good fixer-upper tale. But for many, the never-ending chase for a cure just makes things worse. Our self-worth gets wrapped up in living fixed instead of living well. But in this community, I discovered people finding their worth even on the toughest of days.
I had been working so hard for years to become a doctor and really make an impact in the world, and then I had to contend with a future where I would be totally dependent on others for my survival.
But on my bad days, it's like there's this electrical storm in my head where these bolts of lightning, these shocks are just relentless.
So I was basically paralyzed, but I could hear and see, well, kind of see everything. So I remember the doctor was talking to my ex, and he was saying, I'll never move again. And I was trying so hard to move that finger.
In this community, I discovered a vitality that doesn't exclude hardship. Hearts that shine not when their lives work out, but when they don't. They haven't given up on a cure, but they're learning to positively engage with life despite the lack of a fix.
My ticks always make me William. That's just who I am. And I thank God for it now because I think of it as a blessing and not a burden.
Having my mortality on the label of the chemo that I take every day has made me consider what truly matters.
And those buy me the shots I take, I don't use a counterweight to counteract my shaking. If anything, it basically mimics how I see.
Every superhero has a superpower, and I'm a superhero, and my superpower is my Tourette's. I feel as though it has made me a more caring, compassionate, and loving young man.
I had to deal with being afraid to let go of my attachments to a role or career that I previously imagined. Since the initial diagnosis, I have become more surrendered to this change and open to what other possibilities await me. I like to say, one door closes, two doors open. The possibilities are endless.
When the COVID-19 pandemic interrupted my work on this film, I was forced to adapt again.
In some ways, people in this country are getting a little taste of what it's like to be in the unfixed community, what it's like to live in a world that is unpredictable and uncertain.
Intimacy replaced larger cameras and film crews. I became less a director of a film and more a member of the community. We were already filming ourselves and sharing with each other, so this became more and more of the film to me, each of us working with our own experiences of uncertainty, but now within a global context of uncertainty. The Unfixed community is a tapestry of stories from 20 unforgettable people. We are learning from each other, creating, adapting, finding fulfillment under any circumstance and under any condition.
I had to realize that, okay, William, you just gotta love yourself.
I'm coming to this late, but it's awful nice to fall in love with my body.
Every time I am aware of fear arising, it is an opportunity to reorient myself from the false identity of my small self clinging to survival, to experience the deeper truth of who I am, strengthen my faith, and grow through my challenges by replacing my fear of death with love for existence, of which I will always be a part.
These aren't stories about all the things that can go wrong in the human body. These are the stories about the love that is possible when things do go wrong.
Yeah, I can see it in the background. Kimberly,
They're coming out of my ear.
how are you feeling today? How are you? How are you doing today, Kimberly?
Oh, hi. Sorry.
No,
I'm doing much better than I was the last 2 days. So my symptoms are back down to about, it feels like a 2 or a 3, which are sort of gentle C's. So
I'm gonna jump in there. No, not your symptoms, the symptoms, because those symptoms are not yours. You don't want them to attach to you. You release that. The symptoms, not your symptoms.
that's excellent. I love that. You're right. The symptoms.
Yes,
Wow,
symptoms.
no one has ever brought that up.
You wanna say your health, because the health is yours, but the symptoms are not yours.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really great reframe. Reframe is all. It's sort of the way that we all learn how to cope through this is reframing our experiences, isn't it?
And we were just talking before recording, and you said something. You said when we put into our minds optimistic thoughts, and we were positive, and we try to put a brave face, it releases certain chemicals in our brains. So same thing. When we say my symptoms, then you're giving them a power that they are yours. No, I release that. They are the symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that. It reminds me a little bit of one of the Unfixed videos that we did last month. Was we had all of our Unfixed members talk about or write a letter to their conditions. So dear mal de débarquement syndrome, or dear vestibular migraine, dear ALS. And it was a vast array of, we had breakup letters and we had promotion letters. So it was really fascinating. One young woman, she has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, EDS, and at the end she said, I don't hate you, because if I did, that would mean I'm hating a part of myself, and you don't get to have that power over me. So it was a really interesting, and it's sort of an accessory to what you were saying, in the sense that, yes, she acknowledges that it is, the symptoms are here inside of her body. They may not be her symptoms, but they are living and existing in her body. And so it was important for her to make that distinction, because if she were to hate the symptoms, she would also be hating a part of herself. I thought that was really beautiful.
That is, yeah. Kimberly, you mentioned the unfixed. We're gonna get into that in a bit. But what about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, what happened, how this whole journey began.
That's a long journey. It's been about, well, it feels long. It's been 5 years now. And, you know, it's interesting. Maybe you've experienced this with other people, but it's hard to talk about those first 2 years. There was a real sense of not recognizing my body anymore. The experiences, the sensations were all on high alert. Way more extreme than what I'm experiencing today. And sometimes I wonder, some of it's because I've adapted to it, but in the beginning, it was episodic. So I was in a period of heightened anxiety in my life. I had just learned some shocking news on a genetic site that came in and derailed my entire understanding of who I was. So I'm sure that had something to do with it. But I had also just been in a major bicycle accident and had a pelvic fracture and was had a concussion and was on bed rest for 2 months to heal the pelvic fracture. So it was a heavy year.
Yeah, it sounds like.
So when I started walking again, I didn't have the dizzy symptoms at all when I was on bed rest. And then I started walking again. I started up back to work again. Things were good. But shortly after, I blacked out while having lunch with a friend one day on a job. And I fell flat on my face. And about 3 weeks after that, I started developing some really strange episodic dizzy symptoms. The first one happened in the car, and I pulled the car over because I thought, felt like the car was doing a complete 180. And it passed, but of course, it made my heart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The next one happened about a month later while I was sitting in a restaurant. I mean, none of these I was doing anything extraordinary. It was just all of a sudden this, whoa, what was that? And so I had a couple of those episodes, and about 2.5 months into that, it started to happen every day in the afternoons. And so I had the afternoons for a couple of weeks, started getting more concerned about it, visited my doctor. They were still thinking maybe it was sort of concussion after effects or a neck injury. So we just, crossed our fingers, tried a bunch of different things. And around a month later, it was May 5th, 2015, every day. I woke up that morning, it was there, and it's never left me, except for a few amazing days.
Yeah.
So that began a very long 2 years of trying everything under the sun to make it go away. I tried everything, and I relate. Pretty type A. I was a naturopathic student. I'm very alternative medicine, but I was trying the Western medicines. I was trying the alternative medicines. I was trying the shamans.
Same here.
I started praying to every deity out there. But when I look back on that time, I was so desperate to make it go away. I was pretty much out of body experience. I didn't sleep for about 4 months. The insomnia was terrible. And I was having a lot of these strange gravitational pulls. So like when I did lay down, it felt like I was at a 45-degree angle upside down and off to the right. I had this burning pain up and down my torso most of the time, the front of my torso. So, of course, I went to the best neurologist in Portland, Oregon, where I lived. And he first diagnosed me with cervicogenic vertigo, which is neck vertigo, and they were again relating it to potentially the accident. So I went to a vestibular PT who worked with neck a lot, and he said this will help you. Do 12 sessions. She'll get your muscles, whatever. It just kept getting worse. I did all my 12 sessions with her. I did all my exercises every morning. I should have been sedated. I mean, I was so bad at that point. And everything I tried was just making it worse. So that, in hindsight, I think it was probably a protracted panic attack that lasted for about 2 years. And I know that sounds insane, but I truly think that my nervous system became so destabilized that it never found ground zero,
And everything you're saying, it's so interesting because yes, the anxiety and the panic are a part of this. Like they go side by side. They are very linked. Your vestibular nerve that is connected to your vagus nerve also they are really sensitive to the fight, flight, and freeze states. So when you're feeling off balance and when you're feeling all these weird symptoms, it's very normal to feel the high state of anxiety because you're like, what is going on? Like your normal is not normal anymore. Something's changed. What I'm really curious about is that you've been diagnosed with MDDS or mild environment, but I've been diagnosed with vestibular migraines. Some people that I've talked to have been diagnosed with Meniere's disease, but the symptoms that you're describing, exact same. There is no difference on what you're saying to what I live, to what someone with Meniere's has lived. So I'm really curious to know if maybe the diagnosis that they give us are not correct, or maybe the conditions themselves are so similar that we experience so much of the same. Like when you said that you lay down and you fell at a 45-degree angle, or things are tilted to the right, that's me. It's the same thing. I lay down and I feel like I'm inclined, and if I'm standing straight, I see like things are tilted like to the right, always to the right. Like everything is off. So it's very interesting. When the diagnosis process, how do you get diagnosed?
Well, so that, like I said, the first neurologist diagnosed me with cervicogenic vertigo, and he sent me to the vestibular PT. She was the first one that actually kind of scratched her head after 12 sessions and just watching me and going, "You're not getting better." She said to me, "It seems like you have mal de débarquement," but she said the part that doesn't fit for her was that I hadn't been on a boat. So she had some old information about mal de débarquement that has been updated since then, that the only way you can get mal de débarquement is if you'd had previously been on a long car ride or a train ride or a boat. But it stuck with me because I remember going home and thinking, I read about it on Google and I'm like, that's exactly what I have. And the fact that it went away in the car, which wasn't something that happened with cervicogenic or some of the other disorders. You could probably correct me if I'm wrong about that, but the symptoms are gone as soon as I'm in passive motion. And then you get to a stoplight and it's like, whoa. So it stuck with me, but my, neurologists like to have their convictions. And so he stuck with his assertion. And I ended up sort of tossing it out, thinking, well, I'll have to find some other specialist to eventually, properly diagnose me. But that took me into 7 more months I moved to Colorado at the time to be with my mom because my husband had a daughter that he needed to tend to, and it was a mess. And so I lived with my mom, and she took me to various physicians there. And I started seeing an osteopath there and continued some work with an osteopath back here. And he was the first one, when I finally made it back to Portland, that confirmed in his experience that what I had was MDDS. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's an official diagnosis. The diagnosis, which is really hard to actually even get, because there's no test for it, you know. It's basically you check the boxes. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, you have malleable debarkment. So
Yeah.
the two physicians that I work with now agree that I have malleable debarkment, but like you, I think we're all kind of waiting for the day where we realize that maybe there's some more specific branches within vestibular disorders, but maybe it is all rooted in my neck, you know, but it's manifesting in me particularly as more malleable debarkment syndromes than the typical cervicogenic. I mean, it's so challenging to really know.
It is. It's very challenging. Have you ever researched vestibular migraines? Because the way how you describe yourself, it's honestly, it's what I live in a daily basis. So I feel the resemblance of the symptoms. So have you ever taken a look to see if it could be vestibular migraine?
I have. One of our subjects in the film that I'm doing has vestibular migraines, and she's the first person that alerted me to that most people with MDDS also have vestibular migraines.
Yes.
I think you talked to Sandy Bruner a while ago, one of your shows, and she also said yes. I mean, I think 9 out of 10 times, if you have MDDS, you have vestibular migraines. It seems like it would make perfect sense because I fit all of those as well. So I've never had migraines prior to classical headache migraines or anything prior to this. So, but the inflammation, the pressure in the head, when this all started, I actually remember going to the local, you know, natural food store and buying like a bottle of migraine supplements or something, thinking like if I took some herbs, because it felt like there's something going on in my head, you know. So.
Yeah. Kimberly, one of the symptoms that you and I discussed before doing the show was that we both have to really limit our on-screen time because the visual disturbances. You are a creator, a director of films. How does that affect your performance? Because you have to be really detailed, looking at video, looking at screen time, cameras. How does that affect you?
It's a great question. And this film that I'm doing now is like my coming out party. And I really didn't know if I would be able to do it, to be honest. So it took me 3.5 years to really work my way back to a screen. Even the cell phone screen for a while, it was just like, I know, and I hold it up, my neck straight, you know, I do all that. And it still was just sending, you know, me into these cycles. So, so I actually took up a totally different path when I was screenless for 3.5 years, which was needle felting. That thing behind me there is one of them. It's an owl. And it was just sort of an analog process that my brain needed in order to feel productive and to feel like I was doing something with my days. But it also brought my sensory perception way in, because needle felting takes you here. You know, this is your world. It's this big, and you're doing this with a wool and with a needle. And so anyway, I didn't think I would ever be making films again. I thought in my worst times, I thought my life was over. I thought everything I knew who I was over. I had ambitions and dreams, and it just, I wasn't able to make it through a day. I mean, I was having such a hard time I mean, my dental hygiene went out the door. I mean, I couldn't stand. It was just, being in my body was just so miserable.
Yeah.
So
do you also get it? Sorry to interrupt. I was gonna say, do you also get it in the shower? The sensation of being in the shower, so overwhelming with the water, the curtains, the noise, the sounds.
Yes. So, but here's something interesting. I hold onto the walls when I'm showering, and this is part of a bigger conversation around what I'm doing now, but I let the experience happen, like, whoa, oversensory, whatever. But I turn the heat up really high, scalding hot shower, and I position myself right under the shower head, and I let it pour down my head until all the muscles in my head, my jaw, my ears, my neck, my shoulders, everything just relaxes and descends down. Like there's something about, it feels like all of my musculature is trying to go this way. And when I can get everything to go down and stop bracing against the sensations, it's like therapy. And sometimes I'll even get like these little chiropractic, like my neck will pop, and it's like one of my favorite little therapies where I'll just stand there, and it's not for long, maybe 3-4 minutes. And all of a sudden I feel my feet again, you know, and it's not like the dizziness goes away, but it's definitely gets better.
Changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird because there are different stages of dizziness. So it's like it evolves. It evolves from a floating sensation to a trampoline sensation to a swaying sensation. So when doctors are like, describe your dizziness, you're like, oh man, you have no idea what I'm about to tell you. It's such a trip trying to explain it. Yeah.
So I wanted to go back and tell you about the computer screen. When I started this film, I thought the only way I'm going to be able to do this is to delegate. I'm not going to be able to edit. I'm not going to be. In fact, I was editing really heavily and that was another thing that I was doing when the MDDS symptoms started. I was doing this all night long in front of a computer screen. And so I made sure I was going to delegate. I was going to have a team that was going to help me. And then the pandemic hit and a lot of our funding that we thought was coming in was redirected to frontline workers. And I ended up having to be more of the editor and be in the communication itself with all the members increased. And I started to develop my first migraines after being, and even before the migraines, I'd walk away from the computer and the floor would start to drop out. That's one of my telltale signs that I've overdone it. It's like, I might come to the computer feeling dizzy, but I can manage it. And then I walk away and it's like, oh, the floor is just completely falling from my feet. So I went to an eye doctor saying, I'm not the first eye doctor, I've been to many through this process, but I said, I'm starting to develop an aura right after this intensive screen time editing. And he did something really interesting. He tested my pupil dilation. Maybe you've had this experience. And he said that if they dilate quickly, then your sympathetic nervous system is on overdrive with the light. He was shining a little light in there. And he said if it responded, maybe in 7 to 10 seconds, it's calmed down a little bit and the parasympathetic is more balanced with the sympathetic. And sure enough, mine was responding really quickly to the light. So he pulled out, he's doing light therapy on me right now. And I've been doing this for 2 months now. Okay. And maybe it's a coincidence, I'm always really hesitant to go, yay, something's working, because I've been so disappointed for, a lot of this journey. But I do 10 minutes every morning of these silly, like the glasses, I walk around in the yard with them on and my husband says I look like I'm in a David Lynch movie. But the first one is alpha omega. I'll email you to make sure, but the first one is alpha omega and they're very burgundy like glasses. And I do those for 5 minutes. And then I quickly take them off with my eyes closed and put the green ones on, which are mu theta, and do 5 more minutes of those. And he said it's like training something in my nervous system. They've used this with even kids that get seizures, and it helps the sympathetic not be as reactive to light. And I have not had the floor drop out since then. And I've been in front of the computer a lot in the last 2 months.
Good. That's really good. Well, keep it up. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's free. It's cheap. It makes my husband laugh. So why not?
I know, exactly.
And then I also have these too. The Axon. They're super dark. But these are the migraine blocking glasses.
The blue light, yeah.
So I wear those when I'm working. I have the screen. I can barely see you right now. I have the brightness down so low.
My phone.
Yeah, but usually I have my migraine blocking glasses on too.
Thank you for sharing that. Kimberly, I noticed that a lot of people that start suffering from this, a lot of us, are around the same age group, very similar age group, late 20s to late 30s type of thing. So mostly a big group in the 30s, which gets me reading and learning about this could be related to hormonal changes, number one, and apparently, most recently, I found out that it could also be linked to allergies. I've never had allergies in my life before until this started happening. I started noticing allergy symptoms. So, do you experience any of that? And what do you think about the hormones and the allergy connection?
1000%. 1000% hormones. I absolutely know. My current doctor, my naturopath, who's my primary care, she has me on a number of different herbs and glandulars that keep my hormones more stable throughout the month. I had, when I was 20, I was diagnosed with autoimmune Graves' disease. So I have a thyroid that tends to react to things. Once we got my thyroid more in check, I didn't have the surgery when I was 20. I decided to try to manage it myself, which probably was not such a smart thing in hindsight because I let it go. I had numerous episodes in my 20s and early 30s of, I'd be shaking like crazy and I'd be dropping weight really fast when the thyroid hormone was really high. So, which increases anxiety as well. So anyway, she managed, so my thyroid levels are really constant now. As you know, women's cycles throughout the month change. And so I definitely have felt shifts, but nothing where I can pinpoint, oh yeah, right before my cycle, I'm going to have worse symptoms. That's not always the case, but I just know that the fluctuation affects things. The other point about allergies, I've never had allergies either, but somebody mentioned to me, maybe this is allergies. So I think it was 2 years ago, I went to a really great allergist in Portland, and she's amazing. And she did the basic allergy tests and the pin pricks. And I didn't have any reaction immediately or 20 minutes after. They have you wait to kind of see what, you reacted to. Yeah. 2 days later, I had welts all over my arm and I remember walking down the sidewalk and I could not find the sidewalk underneath my feet. So I went back to her and she said that's unusual, but some people have a really delayed allergy reaction. Like the immune system doesn't rally right away. It kind of is like, let's see if this is really a threat. And so apparently I have that kind of immune system that's like, I'm just going to chill for a little bit and then 2 days later freak out. So she has had she has tried a number of different things. She doesn't like heavy drugs or steroids or any of that unless you're having an emergency. But there's a medicine called Singulair, and it's mostly used for asthma, which I don't have. But she said it lowers your leukotriene response. And it's safe. It's so safe that you can give it to babies and you can take it for the rest of your life. So I don't know if it's helping, but I'm afraid to go off of it. Yeah, so I've been on it for 2 years now, and I am better than I've been in 5 years, but I've been taking it for 2 years and I've had some really bad days too since then. So but I'm also afraid to go off of it.
Now that you speak of medication, have you been prescribed any medication for the MDDS itself? Like, have they prescribed any sort of rescue medication like that?
Diazepam. I'm pretty sensitive to drugs in general, but my neurologist prescribed. He's the last thing he said to me was kind of, and I didn't ever see him again after that, but he said, let's do drug trials to figure out what helps you. So it was a combination of different seizure medicines and anxiety medicines, and that's pretty typical for anybody that's been diagnosed. And knowing the state that I was in at that point, and knowing my previous responses to medicine, it's like, this is not gonna work with me. So I tried the diazepam, and I remember I was just like, I feel all the same symptoms, but now I'm pinned to my bed. So it just made me feel like I was pinned to my bed, experiencing all the same symptoms that I was experiencing before. So, yeah, those didn't work, but I do have an antihistamine, which has been classically used sometimes for anxiety. So I have a little emergency kit, and if things get really, really bad, I have 5 milligrams of hydro something, I'm forgetting what it is, but it's an antihistamine, you know. So yeah, it dries you out a little bit, but it cuts the anxiety cycle, is what it does.
And it might help with the allergies as well. It might be an antihistamine, yeah.
Yeah, I've taken it twice in extreme cases, and I haven't had a bad reaction to it. And I actually did notice that the day after I had pretty low symptoms too. So yeah.
Maybe there is something there, yeah.
Yeah.
Kimberly, now let's get into the Unfixed. What's the Unfixed? Please walk us through it.
Okay, well, Unfixed is an idea that started to occur to me last summer after my incessant fixing journey that never led me to anything but a lot more anxiety and a sense of failure, because I thought, oh, I can't, you know, I was used to just being in control on some level in my life. Like, I can do this, I can figure it out. And I just couldn't. And I kept hitting a wall, and it was pushing me into a deeper and deeper depression and frustration with myself too. Like, oh, I hop on Instagram and some people are cured, so why can't I be cured? You know, and I started to feel really alone, abandoned by, you know, God. Maybe the gods love everybody else, but not me, you know. So I really needed to examine how to live the life that I was living, even if I couldn't be fixed, and how to live it well. And this is nothing to do with not wanting to be cured. I mean, everybody in this film still wants a cure. It's not like we're like, cool, just gonna live with this. We all want a cure. But how do we live really well until that day? And not to prioritize, you know, 24/7, this journey of constantly going to doctor appointments and constantly trying to fix ourselves. I mean, I needed to start prioritizing my values for living and for relationships beyond just trying to be fixed. And I really didn't know how to do it. So I thought, okay, first I'll just see if I can make a film again. And maybe that alone will help me kind of get my feet back under myself and start saying yes to life again. And second, I need to find people that are doing this and how they're doing it. Not that they've arrived and that everyone's, you know, kind of got the award of I'm living a perfect life now, I'm fixed. It's not that, but I wanted the journey of what people were experiencing. So I started putting out flyers in our local neighborhood, and I didn't think it was going to really turn into much. I just thought I'd find a few subjects and put my camera on them and have a conversation, really kind of like, you know, a Zoom conversation. And I got so many people submitting. I built a website and I put a little contact form on the website, and people from all over the country started coming in. And I thought, there's something here. And I started having conversations with these people on the phone just to learn who they were. And at first I thought, well, I'll kind of interview them and pick a few to do the documentary on. And I fell in love with every single one of them. And I thought, I can't say no to these people. I want to do a film about everybody. So but I did limit it at 20, and I thought, okay, let's do this. And I kind of made sure that it was a diverse selection of different conditions and different ages and different backgrounds. And that was the inception of the project. And so that was pre-production started in September of last year. And in January, they started recording answers to my questions. Every month I'll send them a prompt, and it will be, write a letter to your condition, or talk about your good days and talk about your bad days, or talk about self-advocacy. And then they'll turn their little smartphones onto them and talk about their experiences, and then send them to us through Dropbox. And then my lovely co-producer and editor edits them together into some like a 7 to 8 minute cohesive story. So that is hopefully will just continue. My dream with the self-recorded monthly video YouTube project is that next year we can do it again with 10 new subjects, and maybe focus just on vestibular disorders that whole year. Or maybe the next year we focus on intellectual disabilities and talk to subjects and their family members. I mean, it would be really, if we can get the funding to scale it in that way, alongside the actual documentary film that's happening, it would feel like a really great service. And I don't want to end it. It's just
it's powerful. It's ambitious but powerful. Like it's good.
Yeah.
Yes. Amazing. I kudos, because the preview itself, the trailer, I watched it and I shared it with a few people, and they were speechless. They were like, wow. They were like, it's so powerful. So you're doing great. You're doing a great,
Thank you.
a great cause. And you also build a community. I know you have the Unfixed community of people that are now identifying with it. Do you feel that has given them a sense of purpose, or a sense of belonging to a group that understands them?
Absolutely. In fact, I just got a forwarded email last night from our producer that was from 2 members who just, we're kind of checking in. We're taking a break this month, and we're having more personal conversations with everybody. And both of them said, I am so grateful that I have a place where I feel like I'm heard and that I'm not crazy. We have a gentleman who lives in the Midwest with a really severe Crohn's disease, and he's been living with it for over 30 years. And he just feels like the oddball out, and he's a disappointment, and he has to cancel on plans. And I mean, he's I'm guessing in his late 40s, early 50s now, and he still feels like ashamed. And anyway, he just said that he finally has a place where he knows that everyone in the community understands what he's talking about. Even if they don't have Crohn's disease, they have their version.
Nice.
And I feel it too. Or talking to you, to have somebody nod their head and go, "Oh my God, I get it." It's profound.
And I really get it. I live it too. So.
Yeah, there's a field of medicine called narrative medicine, and Baylor University now has an actual master's degree program in narrative medicine. Columbia University has it. And I think the hope was that it was going to be sort of a second degree for medical doctors, but it's a real field, and it's the study and the understanding of how important it is for patients to speak their stories and to really feel like they are heard. And you'd think that would just be part of medical school training, but it's not. So we're finding more and more how important it is for patients to just be able to share their stories, and that there's actually healing power in that. I'm experiencing it myself, and also it fosters a much deeper sense of empathy and compassion, which we need more of in this world. So in order to be able to listen and really hear each other and to really hear our own stories and find our similarities is, I mean, yeah, it's the connection that we're all looking for. So,
Kimberly, when can we expect the film and where can we find it?
that's a great question. And I wish I could say tomorrow. Because of the pandemic, we are not doing on location production. Everything is happening with our smartphones right now. Some of our subjects are very medically fragile. And so we have to wait to actually finish production until there's a vaccine, until it's really, truly safe for my crew of 6 people to get to this person. So we're on pause for that portion of the production. However, I am talking to my co-producer right now about developing a pandemic style cinematography where we could shoot through windows. And we literally, like, I mean, it would only be part of the film. It would just be sort of the B-roll. But to be able to capture people in their homes, in their privacy of cooking, eating, sleeping, and not in a creepy, like, paparazzi type way, but, you know, I definitely don't want it to look like that. But to supplement some of the footage of these lives. And everybody gets a little uncomfortable in front of a camera anyway. So if we are able to potentially see them during the pandemic in their own form of isolation and privacy, we may begin to do a little bit of that in the interim, just because we have to wait. So the goal is that next year we will be able to resume the real production, and that will take us probably through the end of next summer. And then an editor, a final cut usually would take about 4 months. So I'm thinking early 2022 will be, which is originally it was going to be early 2021 because we would be in production right now. So, you know, patience and adaptation, but we all know with chronic illness, we all know how to do that. So I'm adapting.
And I did see that Vida posted an article on you yesterday about the film. So many people are going to be expecting it. Many people are going to be in the lookout for it.
Oh yeah, it's great. We're building our audience right now. And the cool thing is every month we still do these YouTube videos where all 20 members submit their stories. And that just this week we have distribution on those. So those are all going to be streaming on a channel called the Disorder Channel, and people can get that through Amazon, through Roku, and that's something that will continue at least for the next 5 months. So we'll have as many as 16 videos up there for people to learn about their journeys and learn about these specific disorders. There is one woman in the film in these monthly videos and in the film who has vestibular migraines and MDDS. And then there's a variety of other conditions as well. So yeah, it's exciting. The community is growing, and we feel really privileged to just be able to share these stories.
It would be great also, I mean, this is my humble opinion, my 2 cents. Looking at the trailer, I listened to it. I couldn't really view the whole thing because the waves at the beginning, I was like, whoa, my eyes. So it would be great if you could also maybe have it in podcast form or just sound form, because I listened to the whole thing multiple times, because even just listening to your voice is very soothing, by the way. So when you're talking about it and you're describing everything through the video, it's almost like you feel it without even having to watch it. You feel it. You feel your words giving an image in our brain of what you're describing. So sound would be an opportunity, maybe just my opinion.
No, absolutely. We want to make sure that it's in all the grants that I've been writing this summer. We want accessibility to be our #1 priority. Grants always ask, what's your style? And we have to include within that accessibility is number one for us. So that includes deaf-blind viewers, that includes vestibular disorders that can't watch what's happening. So we're going to have to, when the film comes, we already have the open captions on the YouTube videos, but we'll take it another step so that we have transcriptions for people if they want to read it, or if they only want to hear it, or, you know, if they can see it but they can't hear it. We're going to make sure we cover our bases.
That's great. No, that's awesome. Kimberly, where can people find you?
Well, here in Oregon. I say that because I'm such a, I've removed myself a lot from the social media realm. I'm forced to do it more with Unfixed because it's important. But I'm looking out this window right now and there's trees and cherry trees and plum trees and chickens and vegetables, and that's sort of that's really where I reside.
Yeah.
But I also do have an Instagram account, and that's Kimberly 2_ Warner, WARNER. And you can also find Unfixed Film. Unfixed is UNFIXED_film. And you can follow all of these journeys over there.
Awesome. What does the future hold for you now?
Well, I think, like I alluded earlier, my deepest wish is not, to be honest, is if I have to live with this for the rest of my life, that's okay. Now it has brought me such a wealth of insight and community and compassion. Yes, I'd love it to go away. But my even bigger wish is that we can really turn this into an evergreen venture and continue these stories every year and help elevate voices of people with chronic illness and chronic conditions, because there are so many of us out there. 1 in 5 Americans now have a chronic condition. And there are still so many people, even close family members in my universe, that go, that's a really uncomfortable topic, and I think I'd rather look this way. And I want to bring these beautiful, bright souls into the view of everybody, and not have, just because somebody's afraid of looking at, you know, a subject with ALS and you know, because it's scary. It is scary to see a brokenness, you know. But if you can take it just a little step further and lean in, you can see the absolute beauty of these humans and their hearts and their wisdom. So I just want it to continue. That's my goal.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being part of the interview and sharing your journey and your story with us. We'll definitely keep in touch. I'm looking forward to the film, yeah, hopefully we can do a follow-up sometime soon to see where you're at and where your new community is at.
Excellent. Thank you so much for this interview, and you're a delightful interviewer, great listener, and ask really, really great questions. So I wish you the best with everything that you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye, Kimberly.
Bye.